The subcommittee will come to order. I ask unanimous consent that the chair be authorized to declare a recess at any time. Without objection, so ordered. This afternoon, we meet to mark up H.R. 4350, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2022. The readiness mark has been shaped by bipartisan engagement from all members of the subcommittee and informed by in the past 7 months by in-person and remote events that have covered a range of important topics. I'd like to thank Ranking Member Lamborn for his partnership on the subcommittee, the members for their contributions as well as their time, and the committee staff, particularly the committee staff for their many hours of work in preparing this mark. Jeannie, thank you so very much, and to all the staff. It's an extraordinary piece of work. The jurisdiction of the Readiness Subcommittee is wide-reaching, ranging in topics from civilian personnel, sustainment, logistics, military construction, energy, climate change, and environmental policy. With that in mind, I'd like to take just a few minutes to provide some of the highlights of the key issues addressed in this mark. We are continuing the work we began in previous years. The Readiness Mark continues to address the vulnerabilities in installations resiliency and energy resiliency, both in response to climate change and to ensure that the department can continue to operate when utilities are disrupted. The last two NDAAs made sweeping reforms in response to concerns raised by military families about the management, the oversight, and the condition of military family housing. The subcommittee continues this work and is expanding our focus to deteriorating quality of life infrastructure such as barracks and child development centers. Similarly, we are building on previous efforts to address the PFAS contamination around military installations, and we remain committed to ensuring the department addresses the PFAS contamination in defense communities. We also will deal with the PFFF issues of how to contain and deal with fires. Moving on to sustainment. Much of our work this year is focused on sustainment of existing weapon systems through a strong and modern industrial base and ensuring that our newest weapons are both sustainable and affordable. This mark has several provisions that addresses these issues. Next, the safety of our military and civilian personnel remains one of the highest priorities of this subcommittee. The subcommittee is concerned that the military departments continue to have inconsistent safety cultures, and this is leading to avoidable accidents and fatalities. The Readiness Mark elevates the issue of safety by establishing a Joint Safety Council and requiring that the Department of Defense develop a plan for establishment of a Mishap Investigation Review Board to provide oversight and independent review of safety mishaps occurring within the departments, and also to conduct investigations. That's an overview of the 238 pages in this mark. I want to thank all of the members for their participation, and that has reflected in the bipartisan mark before us. And with that, I now turn to my colleague and recognize Mr. Lamborn, the ranking member of the subcommittee, for any opening remarks that he may have. Mr. Lamborn.
Thank you, Chairman Garamendi. Today we advance the fiscal year 2022 Readiness Mark, fulfilling our commitment to readiness and military infrastructure. Thank you, Chairman Garamendi. Today we advance the fiscal year 2022 Readiness Mark, fulfilling our commitment to readiness and military infrastructure to support the training, sustainment, and quality of life for military personnel and their families. Over the past several months, this subcommittee has held hearings on many of the core issues within our jurisdiction, which stretches in scope across the national security enterprise. As I have said consistently in those hearings, I am a strong advocate for increased investment in our readiness accounts and for a higher top line so that we can ensure that we are outpacing our adversaries. We should never send troops into harm's way on our behalf without the commensurate resources necessary to execute their mission. I look forward to those conversations moving forward. But today I'd like to echo the Chairman's comments, especially with regard to the bipartisanship that has driven the process so far. I'd also like to thank the staff, your staff and my staff and all of the committee staff for working tirelessly the past several months. Finally, I'd like to thank the members for their active participation and contributions. Today's mark draws strongly from member input, as well as from our Readiness Subcommittee hearings and briefings over the past year. Provisions contained in this mark reflect that focus and make progress on contested logistics challenges with peer and near-peer adversaries, resiliency so that we can better protect our installations, assets, and people, efforts to ensure that weapon systems are sustainable and affordable over time, support for our aging organic industrial base, environmental issues like PFAS cleanup, and the safety of our servicemen and women, among many others. I again want to thank the committee members for their engagement and for their continued involvement as we work toward enacting another NDAA. The mark before us is a good product, reflective of the bipartisan nature of this subcommittee's work, and I encourage its adoption. With that, Mr. Chairman, I yield back.
Thank you, Mr. Lamborn. Thank you for working so closely together on putting together this mark. We will now proceed to mark up H.R. 4350, the National Defense Authorization Act for fiscal year 2022. Without objection, the first reading of the bill is dispensed with. Copies of our subcommittee mark and directive report language were made available and distributed to members' offices on Monday, July 26th. Is there any discussion or questions on the subcommittee mark? Ms. Lurie, I understand you have a question or a comment.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Garamendi and Ranking Member Lamborn for your work, along with the work of your staff on the Readiness Subcommittee mark. I think there's a lot of excellent content in here and some things that I do strongly support. I greatly appreciate the effort to make the in-serve inspection a permanent inspection to increase the readiness of our ships, as well as the Comptroller General review of the Naval Audit Service. I think that those are critical components for our readiness, and I'm glad that those are included, as well as many other provisions. I would say, however, and echo as well what Mr. Lamborn said, that overall, I think that the product we have from all the subcommittees, the NDAA that we're working on now, the top line does not meet the level that we should have. I think that we should match what the Senate has done, and would clearly like to see 3 to 5% real growth. And we'll look forward to working with my colleagues on this committee as we move forward into the full committee mark to get those resources that I think we greatly need in order to keep up with and continue to outpace our near-peer adversaries in the Pacific. So I yield back and thank you again for your work.
Thank you, Ms. Lurie. Are there any other comments or questions from any of the committee members? Hearing none, we will move on. There being no further discussion, the chair lays before the members the text of the subcommittee mark for consideration. Without objection, the mark is open to amendment at any point. Are there any amendments? There being no amendments before us, we now move on to, there are no amendments. 6, 5. Okay. You know, one of the really important things is we have a terrific staff. The question now occurs on the adoption of the mark. So many as are in favor will say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
The remotes are coming in. Thank you. Are those opposed? There being no opposition, and the roll call not being asked for, The ayes have it, and the mark is adopted. The chair now recognizes the gentlewoman from Michigan, Ms. Slotkin, for the purposes of a motion.
Mr. Chairman, I move that the subcommittee report the mark favorably to the full committee.
Thank you, Ms. Slotkin. The question is now on the motion of the gentlewoman from Michigan, Ms. Slotkin. So many as are in favor will say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? A recorded vote not being asked for without objection. The quorum is present. The ayes have it, and the motion is adopted. And without objection, the motion to reconsider is laid upon the table. Now, without objection, the members have 5 legislative days within which to submit written statements into the record. So ordered. I now ask unanimous consent that the staff be authorized to make necessary conforming, technical, and clerical changes and to remove from the mark provisions that would cause the mark to be referred to other committees or would result in a directed spending. Without objection, so ordered. There being no further legislative business before this committee, the meeting is adjourned.